I was a Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Fellow in 1984 to 1985. Subsequent to that, I developed a 35-year career in Washington, D.C. Having worked for the Majority Leader, I liaised with the Senate, and I liaised with the House, and I liaised with the White House. And that was in the Reagan era. That was followed by my becoming a real player in Washington. I had punched all the right tickets. You know, I had worked on the Finance Committee, I had worked in the offices of the Majority Leader of the Senate, so it gave me exposure to pretty much every key lobbyist and key organization in Washington, D.C., which made me attractive to a number of organizations and gave me a position where I spent the next basically 30 years dealing at the highest levels of health policy in Washington, D.C. My swan song was being the director of the program. The challenge of my life was taking on such a well-developed and well-respected program. By the time I took it on in '84, we already had more than a decade of great history. Becoming the director of the program, one of the advantages I had, and it's going to sound really silly these days, was because I worked for Senator Bob Dole as his health policy advisor. I got to bring a balance between the Democrats and the Republicans, and to be able to walk that line of making sure that we were not leaning one way or the other in the preferences of the program, so that we kept those doors open on both the Republican side and the Democratic side. And that was really, to me, critical, because we didn't want this to be painted as a program that only served half of the country. We wanted to make sure that we maintained our role as a policy analyst organization, not political horse traders. That was really important to me. We focused, as the country did, on inpatient medicine in the academic setting, being the sort of gold standard in the way that we viewed the hierarchy in medicine, to a much broader view of health and healthcare. And you could see that reflected in the admissions to the program over the decades. You saw many more individuals with a diverse background, bringing in diverse perspectives. And in fact, diversity became a hallmark of the program. We added state site visits. You know, we focused so much on federal policy and needed to be sensitized to the role that state policy played in healthcare delivery. Elements that we added included media training, for one. We had great training with Andy Gilman, who still to this day provides media training. His company provides media training for the fellows. I had the great privilege, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation invested in me, and I got to go to a program at Harvard where I took a leadership development course on how to develop leadership in others. And that information I brought back to the program, and that was where we began using some leadership development. This whole notion of leadership development was important to me, and it was fresh on my mind because I had been through a lot of it. So I specifically concentrated on expanding leadership development in the program. And the other thing that we added was leadership coaches. So the program today is rich in leadership coaches. We rebranded the program. We had a nice evaluation that was done by, I believe it was Georgetown University. And we brought in an outside firm to give us some new materials, a new look, some taglines, things that we would have never thought of before. We developed the website, a more expanded and friendly website. That was another very important development, was the rebranding of the program. I mean, it wasn't a job, it was a part of me. It was who I was. So to get to that stage in my life, I mean, I have to admit it, I was 70 when I left the DC. I mean, I was pretty old by the time I decided it was time to hang up my shingle. So while we talk about this program being transformative, it was more than that. And I don't know a bigger word than transformative. And I can only tell you that I probably should have named my first child. She was a girl, so instead of Robert Wood Johnson, I should have named her Roberta. It was such a total redirection of my life. I ended up doing things that I never dreamed I would be doing. It was such a privilege to be from such a, I was a factory worker's daughter, to come from a very humble sense of what the world was about, to have this increasingly eye-opening involvement, and to not only have that kind of open sense of everything you can do, but to bring people into you can do everything. What a great privilege that is.